Well, thank you. I call to order the Area Board of Zoning Appeals of Tippecanoe County meeting of April 23rd, 2025. First item on the agenda is the roll call.
Steve Clevenger.
Present.
Gary Schroeder.
Present.
Dave Vanderplatz.
Present.
Robert Novak.
Present.
Brett Halberg.
Present.
Ed Butts.
Present.
Rabita Ashkanikar.
Present.
Quorum present.
Next item is the approval of the previous meeting minutes.
I move to approve the minutes from the March 26, 2025 BZA public hearing as submitted.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any comments or corrections? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. New business.
BZA 2189, Paul Whitehurst, has been withdrawn by the petitioner. BZA 2191, BZA 2192, and BZA 2193, MGM Plaza LLC, requested a continuance to the May 28th public hearing. All other cases are ready to move forward. Also, if you'll notice, we have a larger crowd this evening. The students from Professor Steinhardt's class are here, so if you would have the time after the meeting to stick around, they'd love a chance to talk with all of you.
Thank you. I will take the public hearing motion, please.
I move that there be incorporated into the public hearing portion of each application to be heard this evening and to become part of the evidence at such hearing, the Unified Zoning Ordinance, the Unified Subdivision Ordinance, the Comprehensive Plan, the bylaws of the Area Board of Zoning Appeals, the application and all documents filed therewith, the staff report and recommendation on the applications to be heard this evening, and responses from checkpoint agencies.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. I'd like to briefly describe our procedures for this evening. Each case will be heard following a motion and a second from the board. We will ask the staff to report on its findings. Following the staff report, we will ask the petitioner to present his or her case, after which anyone wishing to support the petitioner's request for a variance or special exception will be asked to come forward. After hearing from the petitioner or those speaking on his or her behalf, you will ask those speaking against the petition to present their arguments. The petitioner will then be allowed to rebut arguments raised by those in opposition to his or her petition. Following the rebuttal, the board may wish to ask questions of the petitioner, supporters, and opponents of the petition or of the staff. The staff will have the opportunity at this time to make any necessary clarifying comments. We will then vote by use of a prescribed ballot. 4 votes are necessary to make any decision. In the absence of 4 votes, either for or against, the petition is automatically continued to the next meeting. Please observe the following guidelines for the sake of time and fairness to all. State your name and address for the record before you speak. If you're not the petitioner, please sign in at the staff table. There is a clipboard there on the corner. Limit your remarks to 5 minutes or less. Do not repeat arguments that have been brought up by others. Remember that all visual aids used to support your arguments remain the property of the board. Cell phones must be turned off while the meeting is in session. Please step out of the room before using your cell phone. And with that in mind, we'll hear the continuance.
I move to continue BZA 2191, MGM Plaza LLC, BZA 2192, MGM Plaza LLC, and BZA 2193, MGM Plaza LLC, to the May 28th ABZA public hearing agenda.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. If you're here for the MGM Plaza BZA 2181 or 2191, BZA 2192, or 2193, that will be heard next month. And that is up in Battleground at 5500 State Road 43 North. Also, if you're here for BZA 2189, Paul Whitehurst, which was a special exception to allow a boarding kennel, that has been withdrawn by the petitioner and will not be heard. I will hear our first case, please.
I move to hear and vote on BZA 2186, Genoa Salami LLC. Petitioner and owner, Genoa Salami LLC, represented by Chris Shellman of Gutwein Law, is requesting the following variances for a proposed multifamily building. 1, to reduce the minimum parking spaces from the required 280 spaces to 149 spaces, UZO 2-8-11, to increase the maximum building height from the required 35 feet to 60 feet, UZO 2-8-20. The R3 zone property is Lot 1 of the Paramount Minor subdivision, commonly known as 3595 Genoa Drive, Wabash 2, Northeast 23-5, continued by petitioner from the March 26, 2025 ABZA hearing. First continuance.
I second.
A motion and a second, and we'll hear from staff, please. Nathan?
Nathan McBurnett, APC staff. We're back here on Genoa Drive, same as last hearing. We're at the adjacent property to the west this time. Last hearing, we heard a sign variance in the adjacent lot to the east. We have a proposed 140-unit multifamily building here in a residential transition area. Got a shopping center to the south there. It's a very high-growth area. There's a lot of construction in this area. All of it's basically multifamily. This petition was originally supposed to be on last meeting's agenda, but I think it was modified to include that extra floor. So it was, and Chris can correct me if I'm wrong, it was 3 floors, now it's 4 floors, and that is what's requiring the height variance. We're in an area where there are already a lot of parking variances that have been approved. The new multifamily structure to the southwest, right across Genoa, received a parking variance, and then to the northwest, I think also received an approved parking variance. The site in question, I'll pull up what the building kind of looks like here. This is what the building or the site looks like with all that multifamily surrounding the one under construction there. This is our site plan and kind of a rendering there. So the building is 140 units. 105 of those units are 1-bedroom units. And for that reason, the parking standard for R3 is 2 spaces per unit. Specifically in this case, since it's the majority of the facility is going to be a 1-bedroom unit, it makes sense to reduce the parking standard. This is a multimodal area. There's 2 bus stops on Genoa Drive. There's also great pedestrian facilities, has great accessibility to the surrounding land uses. And for that reason, staff recommends approval both to the parking variance and to the height variance. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Petitioner is her representative.
Thank you. Good evening. Chris Shellman of Gutwein Law, 250 Main Street. Thanks to Nathan and the staff. Very detailed staff report. We agree with it just one correction. It's 5 stories technically, but the first floor is all parking and entrance. So there's four floors of apartments. And the change happened, partly in discussion with staff, given the unique the location there on the corner and the growth in this area and the connectivity with the buses and the sidewalks, that they said that they'd be supportive and asked the petitioner to explore, what that would look like for a 4th floor. It's not set in stone, still finalizing some construction items, but this is the base, and we'll explore if that can become a reality. But happy to answer any questions and respectfully request approval of the variances.
Thank you. Anyone wishing to support the petition? Anyone in opposition to the petition? Questions, comments from the board? Go ahead.
Staff, the 149 spaces, is that total spaces, or does that include handicap spaces that would be required, or does that come out of the 149?
So the number that I mentioned should be total spaces. Let's see what that number is. So 140 no, wait, sorry, 108 total spaces.
It's 100 and, it says 149.
108 bed, 108 one-bed unit.
Those are the
Oh,
units,
okay.
yeah.
Oh,
There are 149 spaces inclusive.
Hey, Chris.
Sorry.
Yeah.
There is 149 spaces. Within that 149 include 5 accessible spaces. So there's 149 total, 5 of them are accessible. So 144 non-accessible spaces.
And how many total beds are in this facility?
The facility has
it's 108, right, Chris?
180. Yes.
I'm sorry,
180.
180.
Oh,
Is there and I'm not familiar exactly where the piece of land is there street parking available outside of this parcel?
There's no street parking.
No street parking?
That's correct.
So, well, I guess maybe with the staff, you still feel comfortable with the recommendation to pass that, even with you take off spaces for the handicap? And then if you have visitors, come wintertime when it snows, they're going to have to put that snow somewhere, and typically it's in parking spaces. We feel that this is quite a reduction from typically what we've been presented with, and you guys still feel comfortable with those ratios?
yeah, staff is comfortable with the reduction. As I mentioned, 2 other large multifamily projects in the area have received parking variances as well. As I said, this is a multimodal corridor. There's 2 bus stops. It has great accessibility to surrounding land uses. And I think, as it's mentioned in the staff report, we do think that the parking standard for R3 is a little out of date and could probably use to be revisited specifically for developments in a corridor like this.
Has there been any motion by area plan to change that parking? I mean, we've been hearing this for quite some time. Has area plan proposed anything to change that?
We'd love to get that onto our agenda at some point, but there are other things that have taken priority, unfortunately.
Okay, so they didn't think it was a priority to change that. And do you have, from the other ones that we accepted, usually you kind of give a percentage of the reduction. Do you know how this one compared to the other ones that you had mentioned? Because there again, this is quite a large reduction.
This is more of a reduction. This is allowing for 1.1 spaces per unit. The other ones were 1.48 spaces per unit and 1.5 spaces per unit. So it is a greater reduction in parking, but we are still in support. It's still more than 1 space per unit, and it's understood that not every unit is going to even have a car.
How did that come about, that not every unit would have a car?
More and more people don't have cars, especially in corridors where there are multimodal transportation options. That's just a natural progression that we see as planners in heavily multifamily developments like this.
Thank you.
Chris, did you have something you were?
Only thing I would add that in this location, given that there's no on-street parking and off-site, to the extent the developer believes that the parking is sufficient, for a lot of the reasons same staff mentioned, but they can't park on the street, so either they won't rent the apartment if they need the parking spot and it's not available, and that's a development risk on this site. There's limited risk of impact on other people here at the location.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Hearing none, we've got 2 ballots.
All right, on the first ballot, which is a variance to reduce minimum parking, there are 7 ballots cast, 6 in favor, 1 against. On the second ballot, which is to increase the maximum on the building height, 7 ballots cast, 6 in favor, 1 against.
Both variances are granted, and we'll hear our second case, please.
I move to hear and vote on BZA 2188, West Lafayette Parks and Recreation Incorporated. Petitioner and owner, West Lafayette Parks and Recreation Incorporated, is requesting a variance to reduce the setback for a monument sign from the required 11 feet height of sign to 7 feet. The R1 zone property is located northeast of the intersection of US 231 North and Cumberland Avenue, commonly known as 2500 Cumberland Avenue, West Lafayette, Wabash 11 Northeast, 23-5, UZO 4-8-6.
I second.
Motion and a second, and we'll hear from staff, please. Nathan?
All right, we're, as Robert said, here near the corner of 231 and Cumberland. The light-colored R1 zone portion is the portion of the park that this sign is going to be on, Case and Family Park, very exciting. Close-up of that, currently under construction. I think their grand opening is in May. There we go. Here's a shot of the sign. One thing to note in the staff report, originally the sign was measured to be 16 feet tall mistakenly, and part of the reason for that, this thing is lagging on me here. As you'll see on the sign, the top portion of the sign with the bench and the artwork, after conversation with West Lafayette City staff, we're considering that portion of the sign to be public art as opposed to part of the sign itself. It's not contributing to the message of the sign. And so the measurement of the sign, the height, is 11 feet up to the top of that message portion. And so the variance will allow this to be 7 feet from the right-of-way. It is a very wide right-of-way here on Cumberland Avenue. I think it's 145 feet across. So this will make it more visible to the traveling public, and staff recommends approval. Thanks.
Thank you, and we'll hear from petitioner, please.
Good evening, Jennifer Van Sciver, Director of Development with the City of West Lafayette. I'm happy to answer any questions, and mostly I'd like to invite you to the Case and Family Park grand opening on May 22nd at 10:30. We're going to have food trucks and a lot of celebration, and we would like this to be visible to the public on where to enter. And yeah, happy to answer any questions about the sign.
Okay, thank you. Anyone wishing to speak in favor of the petition? Anyone in opposition? Questions from the board or comments? Hearing none, we've got a ballot.
Seven ballots cast, 7 in favor, 0 against.
Variance has been granted, and we'll hear our next case, please.
I move to hear and vote on BZA 2190, Jeremy Rush. Petitioner and owner, Don Gribble, represented by Jeremy Rush of JLG Contracting, is requesting a variance to reduce the rear setback from the required 10 feet to 2 feet to allow construction of a shed. The R1 zone property is Lot 116 of Barberry Heights subdivision, Part 5, Phase 2, more commonly known as 808 Ashland Street, West Lafayette, Wabash 7, Northeast 23-4, UZO 2-1-8.
Second.
Good evening, Christine Rail, APC staff. As was mentioned, we are in Barbary Heights subdivision in the R1 zone. And this single-family home is surrounded by other single-family homes. As you can see, the petitioner's property is outlined in black, and it is served by public utilities. There we go. Let's see, the final plat for Barbary Heights subdivision, Part 5, Phase 2, shows a 10-foot easement, utility easement at the rear of the property and 5 foot on each side. The petitioner plans to build a 24 by 14 shed 2 feet from the rear of the property. The backyard is enclosed in privacy fencing. A shed poses no risk to the public, will not obstruct any views, and will not impose onto any surrounding properties. Based on the submitted site plan, maximum coverage and minimum vegetative coverage will be met. Staff believes that 2 feet separation between the back of the shed and privacy fence on the property line is not enough space to properly maintain the shed, and staff can find no ordinance imposed hardship which makes it impossible for petitioner to follow the requirements of the UZO and build a shed with the required 10-foot setback. Staff cannot support this request and recommends denial. If approved, the property owner would need to obtain encroachment agreements with various utility companies allowed to locate there, as well as filing to vacate the utility easements with the city of West Lafayette. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Petitioner or his or her representative?
Good evening. I'm Jeremy Rush. I'm the foreman for JLG Property Investments. As mentioned, we're just wanting to put a shed at 808 Ashland in the backyard. With the required setbacks that are in place, it would put the shed right in the middle of his backyard, which I think everybody could agree that'd be very inconvenient. Again, as mentioned, we're not going to be obstructing any views, imposing on anybody else's property. If you look around the property, there are other sheds that are closer than what we're asking. We will still meet the requirements of the sides. It's just the back setback that we are requesting.
Anything else?
That's it.
Thank you very much. Anyone wish to speak in support of the petition?
My name is Don Gribble. I'm the property owner. And I just wanted to say one thing about the utilities that seem to be in question. When they started doing my fence work and my sunroom addition, we had the utility companies come out and mark all utilities. And in that corner where we want to build the shed, there are no utilities there. So everything's been marked and laid out, and I just don't see an issue with it. That's all.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor of the petition? Anyone in opposition to the petition? Questions, comments from the board? I guess I've got one for petitioner or the property owner. With the fence back there and 2 feet, how are you going to paint or maintain the back of the shed?
So that was the reason that we requested the 2 feet. I believe that 2 feet is more than enough to be able to get behind and mow. It also keeps water, I mean, obviously it'll have gutters, but say they get clogged and water's running over, it's not gonna be flooding out the neighbor's yard or anything. We believe that the 2 feet would be more than sufficient for that. It's just the backside of the shed. It's not like it's gonna need a whole lot of maintenance, but at least he can get behind it and mow and basic maintenance.
And it also looks like there are utilities that are, I mean, power lines and whatever else is on the poles there that go right across, probably right above that fence.
Yes, they're actually just directly above that fence. So if we're in and the slope is gonna be going away from those utilities, I don't see any pose of risk of getting into those.
There's no, it doesn't look like there's a pole there where they'd have to be able to get up, on a pole.
No, there's no
or
pole there.
anything.
The only pole on the property is, as Mr. Gribble mentioned, is in the back corner, which is the opposite corner of where we plan to build.
I guess a question for our attorney or staff. Staff's recommending a condition to vacate the easement. Is that even possible with those power lines there, or what? Is that a requirement that they would have to in order to get a building permit for this, or?
I don't know that it's a condition of the APC. It is a practical condition, though, because if you put something within the easement of the utility company, they may not figure it out for, 6 months, but when they do figure it out, it will be a problem. So unless you correct me, I would say the staff is just saying, be aware, you have to get permission. And I agree wholeheartedly, because they will not, they will not go along with it unless they have pre-approved it.
And
So-
we can't speak to what any
Right.
building permit issuer would require at that point.
But at the building permit stage, that would not be something that the AO would do.
Not sure.
The AO would probably not say, you cannot do it because of this, but they would, I'll bet you, say the same thing, is you need to be talking to the easement holders, because this is clearly going to be within an easement. Even though there are no actual lines or pipes, it's still within their easement. So I don't think it's a condition. Do you agree?
And
Yes, we agree. It would not be against ordinance.
Right. So it's not a condition, but it certainly should be done.
And it's also possible too, I guess, that if a utility decides they want to put something there, that they could force you to rip it up in order to put that utility in there, granted that they have an easement to go through there. So it's not just because there's nothing there, but you probably need to talk to the utility companies and make sure that there are no plans, for that, and you're taking a risk.
So with approval from the utility companies, like if they say that we should be good to go, then it shouldn't be a problem?
It's,
We're-
you'd
we're
probably,
taking-
you'd
we're
probably,
taking the
you'd
risk.
probably, you'd probably have to get legal advice on that, would be my suggestion. But you're, as long as that easement exists, you're taking a risk.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments? If not, we've got a ballot.
Seven ballots cast, 6 yes, 1 no.
Variance has been granted, and we'll hear our last case, please.
I move to hear and vote on BZA 2194 Peninsula Point Flats LLC. Petitioner and owner, represented by Ryan Munden of RTS Law, is requesting a variance to increase the maximum height from the allowed 35 feet to 48 feet for the construction of a multifamily building complex. The R3 zone property is located at the corner of US 231 South and Veterans Memorial Parkway West, WIA 7 Northwest 22-4, UZO 2-8-10.
Second.
We have a motion and a second, and we'll hear from staff, please.
Thank you. Amanda Esposito, APC staff. We are here on the south side of Veterans Memorial, where it meets 231 at its western terminus there. This property, if it looks familiar to you, is because it's the third time it's been before this board for variances. It is currently zoned R3, as is property across Veterans Memorial. It's surrounded by floodplain and roadway. Beyond that, we've got a lot of A zoning. It is currently unimproved. The previous variances that it had granted were for parking within the, approved parking within the 60-foot front setback, another parking variance, and a couple of setbacks. We are here this time for a height variance. Just a few pictures here. So from my understanding, of all of the buildings on site, and I think, let's see, we have 9 three-story buildings and a clubhouse on site. 2 of the buildings are really the subject of this variance. The rest of them are all set back in such a way that they gain a height bonus if a building meets or exceeds the setback, the required setback on all sides. You get additional height bonuses. 2 buildings, buildings 1 and 3, don't meet that setback bonus, so that is why we are here tonight to get a height variance to go up to 48 feet instead of the required 35. It is from the nature of the architecture here. The peaked roof is really causing the height of these to be a little bit higher than what is normally allowed. And staff believes that this, the ordinance does pose a hardship because there is such a large setback along Veterans Memorial Parkway that it's nearly impossible to build exceeding that with the multifamily here. It does make it a hardship, so we are able to recommend approval. It doesn't, it's not going to be injurious to the public health, safety, or welfare. Because of the large setback, it is kind of buffered from all the properties around it, not just by the roads, but by the floodplain around it. It is a rather unusual lot. It's kind of triangular in nature. And the floodplain poses kind of an unusual hardship as well for this one. So again, we are recommending approval for this height variance, and I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Amanda. Petitioner, his or her representative.
Ryan Munden with RTS Law here on behalf of Peninsula Point Flats LLC. As Amanda mentioned, we're just requesting variances for 2 of the 9 buildings with the setback bonus. One of those buildings we could get to 43 feet, the second would be to 39 feet. The right-of-way at the corner of Veterans and 231 kind of juts into the property, and that's where Building 1 is located. And then to the east on Veterans, you can see where the right-of-way bumps out towards the property. There's a bridge there. So there is an extremely wide right-of-way on that end of the property as well, and that's where Building 3 is located. In addition to the odd shape and the floodplain, there's also sanitary sewer that runs right through the middle of the property.
So it is an extremely difficult property to develop, as evidenced by the fact this is the third time we are here. But we concur with staff's report with respect to all ballot items. We concur with staff's recommendation, and we would recommend your approval. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone wishing to speak in favor of the petition? Anyone in opposition? Questions, comments from the board? Robert?
Staff, you said if it's farther back, they kind of get a height bonus. Just, what is the purpose of, if it's farther back, is it because it doesn't cast shadows, or why would there be a height bonus if it's farther back?
That's a good question, and my first response was going to be that when you're closer to a roadway or to a sidewalk and you have people right there next to a building, you want things to be people-sized, smaller. So if it's too close to the road and it's really tall, it stands out more, and it's a more imposing structure to the pedestrians or to the cars along the road. Of course, that's just from an aesthetic standpoint in my mind, so I really don't know what the ordinance reasoning is. Good question.
Thank you.
There may have been something in there at one point, when the ordinance was developed, that's because it's so close to the property line, if it were to fall over due to wind, be blown over by winds, a tornado, it's going to go everywhere anyway, but due to winds, that it would fall on the property. And that way, if you move it back as you raise it up, you've got more of a fall down.
That's why we have the setbacks for signs. If
Right.
the sign should fall over, you don't want it falling on the road.
But there may have been some thought to that, if I remember vaguely. Any other questions? Not, we've got a ballot.
Seven ballots cast, 7 yes, 0 no.
Variance has been approved. Have any administrative matters?
There are none.
Unless any member has an objection, the chair will order the findings of each member casting a vote for the majority decision of the board to be the collective findings of the board in support of the decision of the board. Hearing none, it is so ordered. And just a reminder that we do have a class here today. If you're able to stay afterwards for a few minutes and talk to the students, it would be appreciated. And I'll take the last motion.
I move to adjourn.
We are adjourned. Thank you.
Ryan, hello. Barry, let's go look in structure yet again.
He didn't even bring our pretty rendering.
Oh, I'm sorry, not a color one.
Have a good one. Go get those kids. Better unlock them.